Okay.
We're recording now.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you for attending the meeting of Mundell's Community Council for 11th of June 2024. I'll start off with the agenda that I have in front of me. Point 1, apologies for absence.
Chair, I've got 4 apologies. Councillor Townsend, Councillor Erasmus, Councillor Parkin, and Councillor Hampton.
Yeah, so that's Councillor Sarah Keaton as well. She's messaged me, she can't get online.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so if I go on to point 2 on the agenda, which is declarations of interest. Declarations of interest, none to be noted here. Okay, public participation. Members of the public may take the opportunity to ask questions about anything that's on the agenda. I don't think we've got any public in attendance today. So if that's the case, could I move on to point 4 to approve the minutes of the meeting held, I think it's on the 9th of April, is that correct? I think this was a bit of an oversight, was the last time?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes, it should have been listed for the.
It didn't get listed, so it's a bureaucratic procedure. We're all happy to approve those minutes. Here's Angela. Do you want me to make an entrance? Clean that up, just hanging about in the hallway. Here I am. Okay.
The minutes, Phil?
Sorry. Are we all happy with the minutes?
Yes.
Right, so if we move on to point 5, which is to approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 14th of May 2004, which was our last full council meeting. You have these in your meeting pack. Any queries? If not, are we all happy to approve them? All in favour? Yeah, okay, thank you. So we move on to point 6 then, which is the highlight of the meeting then, I think.
Nobody counts them.
Do we have them there? Sorry.
Yes, I bet.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
No.
Yeah, highlights. Got the accounts, yeah, there. Yeah, really. So presentation from Sunny Khan from the Big Climate Leap. So can I hand over to you, Sunny? Can you just explain as well what it is you're going to be doing? Maybe some of the councillors haven't.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, my name's Sunny. I'm the Big Climate Leap, which is a national lottery funded project run by the Environment Centre in Swansea, and it's there to engage not-for-profit groups and organisations in the Swansea Bay area to reduce their climate impacts. So we're in year 2 of the project. We've been meeting with Lydia a couple of times, who's told us that the Mundell's Community Council are interested in reducing their footprint, doing a carbon footprint and essentially reducing the footprint and looking for ways to reduce it. So and we like the idea of working with Mundell's Community Council, the kind of projects you do and the scope of your activities. There's a lot of interesting projects there. So basically, I'm just here to explain a little bit about the footprinting process, how that might work, to talk about what we need, and then to answer any questions, which I'll just condense all that into 5 minutes. So I'll start about the footprinting process, really. So I mean, a carbon footprint is a technical activity. It does require some expertise. And especially with an organisation like the council, the Mundell's Community Council, with a £1 million kind of budget, that's a massive enterprise. It's way beyond our ability in terms of staffing to do a full, proper carbon footprint of that. So but nonetheless, we can do something. So what can we do? We would start, say, with the budget, which is published on the website, which is for the year ending 2024, so just the recent financial year. And we would look at those headings and we would do a preliminary, what's known as a sort of input-output spend-based analysis on that, which is a fancy word it's a fancy word for a complicated process, basically. But it allows us to condense a carbon footprint down into analysing spends the areas of the economy where they're spent, and then using sort of national data on sort of carbon intensity of those areas to figure out what the footprint is. That gives us a ballpark figure of the council's activities. So that would be like stage one of the footprint. So we don't require anything from the council. We can just do it based upon the public information, and we'll get ballpark figures of what are known as the hotspots. So we can see what are the hotspots in the council's activity. And we would then zoom in on those. So that's how we would save time. We'd do a broad analysis first of all the activities, see where the hotspots are, and then we would look to spend more time on those hotspots. So then we would say, let's say one of the hotspots was, I'll take a random thing, rental for parish online maps. That was not going to be a hotspot, but let's suppose it was. Then we would probably ask Lydia to say, hey, can we look at the budget for that and look at the more detailed entries for that budget? When we look at that budget, that might be another sort of 5 pages of data that we would then do a more detailed analysis of. And then we would see hotspots within that, which we may go further. But that would be basically the extent of what we would do initially. So there might be 2 or 3 iterations of that process where we start with the online budget that's published on the website, identify 2 or 3 hotspots, and then ask for more detailed information, budget information on those hotspots, and then do the same kind of analysis again. And we'd eventually end up with some key areas that would be needed that we'd need to work on to reduce the council's footprint. We've looked for basically easy through or easy pickings, where's the easy areas where the council can quite quickly reduce their footprint. And often there is easy areas without spends. And then depending on what you wanted to do at that stage, we could then go further looking at what are known as what I've just described might be called a tier 1 analysis, but then there's tier 2 and tier 3, which I won't go into, but that would require much more input from the council in terms of you'd have to devote some staff time to gathering more specific information. We'd have to devote a bit more time in looking at certain aspects of the council's activity. But the initial phase doesn't really require anything from Mumbles County Council other than to potentially release data, which may be problematic because it's financial data. So that would be the broad kind of idea of the carbon footprint that we could do without having to do the whole of the council's activities in detail, So, and in terms of like how it works from our point of view, so we would just literally require, in order to release the staff time to do this, like for example, a £50,000 budget might require 5 days of staff time. So this is like £1 million budget, but obviously we're not going to go into that level of detail. But that just gives you some idea of staff time. But in order to release the sort of staff time to do that, we just need a BCL agreement signed, which just basically 2-3 page document that says this is what we're going to do, this is the time commitment we require, and so this is what, if you have any problems, this is who you contact, and so on. So as soon as we've got that signed, we'll be able to start engaging and doing the work. So I'll stop there, and if you've got any questions, let me know.
So am I right in thinking, thanks by the way, Will Thomas, nice to meet you. Am I right in thinking this is about trying to identify and therefore reduce the council's ongoing carbon footprint?
Yes.
Okay, so we're not going to identify the things such as Underhill, which we built, done, passed on, skate park, which is obviously a lot of concrete, which is built, done, and that's in the ground, that's settled.
Yeah.
So we're not going to be going back over the previous things and saying, well, that X amount of concrete, for example, for the skate park added X amount of carbon, therefore you should probably roll back. It's more about the ongoing, what we do day to day. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would start with the 23-24 budget. So if there are sort of big capital projects that the council did in the past prior to that,
Yeah.
of course you could include them, and then you could sort of in a way depreciate the carbon cost of that over subsequent years. Or we could just ignore it and just say in the report, hey, we've ignored this for now, actually because we don't have time or for various other reasons, and just stick with the 23-24 budget. But basically, those kind of things would be identified in the initial kind of report, and then you get a chance to look at it and say, okay, I think we should include the skate park. I think we should include this and so on and so forth. So it's really up to you. You know, what you're talking about are what are known as boundary issues. What are the boundaries of this footprint going to be? So basically, I would just start with the budget, and then when you produce the preliminary report, you would just say, hey, these are the boundaries that we've established. So you all get a chance to look at them and think, oh, I think the skate park should be in there. You know, we shouldn't ignore that and so on and so forth. So potentially you can, yeah. So.
Okay, so, yeah.
Well, yeah, so we could effectively start almost, if you like, with a clean slate starting in 2023, and rather than looking at specific projects from that year, we could say look at the capital spend for the future. So, for example, Ostring, you know, which is a project that's hopefully will develop over the next few years, the redevelopment of this site, because I think there's a will, you know, for us to take on these projects one after the other and do something with that. If it hasn't, you know, we've done Underhill with Ostream, you know, there's things like the yacht club that we talked about in the previous meeting. You know, we've got ongoing commitments to places like Bowls. Yeah, and looking forward at this point. So, in terms of then the staffing time, so I mean, obviously, that's, you know, is that calculable for the amount you said that, you know, obviously your staff, if you're doing a deep dive, there'd be so many hours, and then that would have an impact on our staff, so that would have financial impact on ourselves, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so I was going to ask that about the financial. For tier one, for example, how much would you be expecting us to outlay for that?
It would be pretty. I would be pretty minimal, really. Like, so the first sort of iteration literally doesn't require any staff. I mean, Lydia's already met a couple of times, so I guess that's some staff time. But maybe, like, if you were to tot it all up, maybe sort of a day and a half, 2 days max, you know, for the first.
So if the more staff we put on it, does that make a difference to bringing the cost down? Because then there's less staff being put in it from your end, or does that not necessarily make a difference?
It doesn't make a difference from our end, because we still have to do the work. You know, like the main sort of staffing time at your end initially would just be getting us the budget. I don't know how easy it is for people to get hold of the budgets, you know, but I mean, there's not actually any work required at your end until we've done the sort of spend-based analysis and identified the hotspots and looked a bit closer at them, and then there may be some work required. Depends. So I can't really say that. But so, for example, if we look at some of the capital spending in this budget, and we identify that there's a problem in the procurement, then someone obviously would need to sit down to rewrite, potentially change the procurement policy of the council. That would require some staff time. You know.
So in other words, to look at it is for free,
Yeah.
but then to unlock what is needed to be done will come at a cost, and we don't know what that cost is yet.
And also that would be a decision for us then, that would be a decision for council, because, you know, even if they recommend something, if we bring this to council and we as a council say, well, all very well and good, but we're not going to do that because it's too expensive, then that would be a decision for us.
So again, this isn't, sorry, Martin, this isn't expense. This is expense in terms of our time and our staffing, rather than actual cost. Yeah. Like,
Initially.
Yeah.
because the lottery funds you 100%.
I mean, yeah, like getting to the point of producing a footprint with a series of recommendations that you can review and cost would maybe be 2 or 3 days of staff time max, but probably a lot less. But it would be a lot of staff time on our side.
Okay.
I suppose at that point we'd be able to make a judgment.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I mean. It would be up to us to make a judgment, and of course, you know, we'd have to take in and consider. Can I just give a couple of questions as well? So I take it you're working with other organisations as well.
Yeah.
What sort of organisations are you working with? Are you working with any other community councils or anything like that?
No, we're not at the moment, but there's certainly other community councils on the list. Yeah, most of the organisations we're working with at the moment are people like theatre companies, or charitable theatre companies, or care organisations.
So you've got charities, have you?
Yeah, charities, yeah. I mean, it has to be not for profit. Yeah, so it's mainly charities.
Yeah, it has to be not for profit.
Yes.
Then. Yeah, stuff like
Yeah,
that.
the lottery won't fund anyone that's a sort of commercial enterprise or anyone that has
Yeah.
legal obligations to reduce their footprint. Yeah.
So,
I was just going to ask you for an example of some previous work that you've done and a recommendation that you gave in terms of the biggest impact of how you reduce the carbon footprint.
So, yeah, so like in terms of Big Climate Leap, so this is the first year that we'll be working with Big Climate Leap as a project hasn't done a carbon footprint of an organisation before. But like I say, I've had like 15 years experience in carbon footprinting with various sort of organisations and community groups. Some of them commercial, some of them charitable, and it varies a lot. Maybe sort of 60-70% of the footprint of a typical organisation is its procurement policy. It's the things that actually spends its money on. It's not like solar panels or commuting, how you get to, it's the procurement policy and what you spend on. So often the biggest savings will be made there, but whether that can be achieved or not just doesn't, it depends. So whether that can be achieved, it depends on how complicated that is. So for example, if we were to look at the Mumble statement, we might find that if you switched your concrete, sourced your concrete from a different supplier, you might be able to reduce your footprint by 10-15% straight away.
well, the next question was, so say for instance, like there's no concrete plans. There was a we doing the offstream just at the moment, but say we went forward with the offstream sector. Would you be in a position to help advise us then into how we could reduce our carbon footprint in our situation?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, definitely, yes, we could. I mean, how complicated that would be is difficult to assess.
Yeah.
Yes, we can certainly look at it and either say this is too complicated, we can't put the work in, it's too, or we can say, oh yeah, but we can certainly identify where you could put the work in. If you want to. Well,
I'm just sort of wondering the benefit to us, because I mean, with Ostream, for example, we're going with a company called Down to Earth, which deliberately look for the most eco-friendly and climate-friendly ways to do things. With Mumbles Fest, we are very green aware with that. I mean, we don't use single-use plastics for our glasses, and we try to reduce any sort of potentially environmentally harmful as much as possible. So I mean, I can't see what else we can do apart from what we are doing. We have Lydia as our environmental officer, and I think we're doing it quite well.
Well, second opinion, mate, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I don't know what you don't know.
You coming in?
When it comes to past things, we can't talk about those only because they're done. But, they are done.
There's absolutely tons we could do. I've absolutely tons. Sorry, I've come in the middle of the. I have no idea what you've covered. It's really pleased to see you here today explaining. There's so much that this organisation could do, and Mumbles could do as a whole. So I think we should be looking at this and thinking, this is free advice.
Yeah.
This is a free project. We should be going for it. Can I tell you why I've been this today? I've got to brag. I've been with Prince William.
All day. Late night.
I organised an event for him in Cardiff. And if we should just be taking the lead from our royal family. We should be going for this. Not saying we're doing that. We're not doing it.
Did he fly there?
You didn't got the train.
No, he's very much on board.
Sorry, I have to blurt that out because I'm so chuffed.
Yeah.
You're obviously excited. I can see you've got your court dress on as well, but then.
Yeah.
Lydia, sorry.
Just to say that this project is about highlighting the positive things as well, rather than being a thing we're saying we're doing everything wrong, we need to change it. It's not what this project's about. This project's about highlighting the areas where we're doing really well and bragging about them, highlighting areas where we can improve, and bragging that we're improving about that. So that's how we're going to benefit from it. And also we have an obligation to do things to improve our carbon footprint as part of reaching net zero.
And I think more
With the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, we have an obligation to do these things as well. So we can say that we've declared a climate emergency. In 2019 we did that, but we haven't really done anything about it. So this is us doing something about it, I think.
Yeah. I was going to say echo and point there as well. I think it's free advice. You know, what's there not to like, really? Is it like?
May I just ask, when you do highlight, is it a sort of a red, amber, green sort of situation where you say these are the hot spots, these are the, once you've looked at these and done your best with these, you can move on to this, and, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, basically.
Yeah. So it's a sort of a, you know, because there might be something that we can't do
Yes.
a great deal with, even though it's as you said, a hotspot.
Yeah.
You know, but
Yes, it works.
yeah, that's good.
Yeah, the other thing I would just say to what you said is it is a specialist discipline. And so what you generally find is that the public perception of what reduces carbon footprints doesn't actually bear out the reality. There's a lot of sort of problems of what's known as carbon issues. So, for example, waste like recycling and cups is generally only 1% of the carbon footprint. Increasing the energy efficiency of a building doesn't necessarily reduce your footprint. Growing your own is that can actually increase your footprint, more from a not recent study showed. So there's a lot of misconceptions around carbon footprint, and that's what you get when you bring a sort of a more sort of professional approach to it. Is you get some clear sort of guidelines on what actually does reduce your footprint and what's just popular sort of misconceptions and so on and so forth. So.
Okay, any more questions? If there's not any more questions, I thank you, Sunny, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your evening. So if I move on to point 7, in case anybody doesn't know, Katie's off today because unfortunately she's got COVID, so Paul has very gallantly stepped in at the last minute to act as clerk for this meeting. So if I would hand over to you, if the clerk's report, I don't know if you.
No, I spoke to Kerry today, but she hasn't told me of any clerk's report. There's nothing on the agenda, so I suspect there's nothing for this month.
Okay. Rhiannon, you've got your hand up, sorry, have I missed you?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Sorry, so what's our decision about getting, I'm sorry, I didn't catch his name. Getting the free advice, the ECHO. Are we going to vote on whether we should, pardon?
Kerry,
Yeah.
Was it in agreement?
Yeah.
Subcommittee,
There's no real decision, that was advisory to talk, but unless reading around the room here, unless there was any sort of, the whole idea of it, the whole point of the presentation was to raise councillors' knowledge of it, because rather than it just being something, you know what happens with the communication within the council, something gets discussed at the environmental committee, it's something that we need to be engaged in as a full council, but it doesn't move beyond the environmental committee. I do sort of think the feeling a bit with this presentation this evening that we've just had is the councillors can't turn around now and say, well, I didn't know anything about this, because it's on record, it'll be minuted that we did have a presentation. If anybody's got any questions about this, we can put them back to it. But considering all, you know, what we talked about with the climate emergency, considering what we're to do with the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, unless I think there's any strong objections to us not going with this, personally, I don't think there's any decision to be made. Angela?
No, I'm for it. Just in terms of a financial outlay, we haven't agreed that because we don't know what that is.
But that was the point I was
Yes,
making
yeah.
there, is even if, you know, they come in and they say, right, we've looked at this, you've got a strong carbon footprint there. If you're going to do that, then, you know, they will give us the cost. And then it will be a decision for us as a council to sort of say, well, if we're going to reduce our carbon footprint, well, we need to do that.
Yeah.
Lydia, and then.
so I just make it clear, so if any costs are incurred from this, I have to bring it to full council.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. The whole reason I wanted Sunny to come today was just to make everyone aware of it. And because obviously it will impact every
Yeah.
part of the council, and I'm going to be trying to get information from people.
Just bring up Francesca and then I'll seek a bit of advice from Paul mind on this. So Francesca.
Yeah, I think it was a good idea, and it's nice that we are involved, that, you know, because not always we know what is going on in the environment. I know it's all good and positive, but it is nice that we all,
Absolutely.
and if, and not just about the money, but it would be nice to know what the traffic light system is going to be. So I'm just going to see if we could sort of pencil it in, which will notify the clerk when it's, just have an update, that would be really interesting.
Could I just have a bit of clarification on Paul of this, with exactly Lydia's point there? Because, you know, we don't want to be going back for a full council decision on every item of outlay. What would be the procedure there, would you say?
But I would have thought it probably should go back to the environmental committee first.
Yeah.
And then the environment looks at the different options that have been put forward, if there are any. So I suspect there will be, and then environment makes a recommendation to council.
And then that
This is how we're going to go forward, and this is where the budget's going to come from.
Yeah.
There will only be costs when we make action and actually plan. So that will be further down the line, but probably not for a while.
No, this I think the point that Angela was making is what, you know, the whole point that he was making is the initial point. They're doing all the activity really. It might take a bit of you at times to just give them the information. But then when they identify anything quite markedly, then that will have to come back to full council. Ian Scott, sorry.
Yeah, I'd just like to ask, Chair, how much time do you feel that you may have to put to it?
Now that, to be honest, until recently, it's been quite a lot of chasing up. But now that the Big Climate League are on board, not very much time at all. It's just getting access to budgets that I need, and that will take an email to Paul.
Lose you as far as the time factor goes.
Well, yeah,
You know, especially if they're supposed to be had a lottery grant for it.
exactly.
You know, we should.
Yeah. I personally don't think I have a lot of time to put to this either. So time I have to put to it the best.
Also, I think this is something that Kerry will have to manage as like manager.
Apologies for just being so kind of flustered and blurting stuff out when I enter. It was such a lovely day. Quite such a lovely day. Obviously, it's been amazing. I just want to say really interested to hear positive views in the main about this project, because this is massive. If we don't in this room realise this is like a major issue, well, I think we all do now, which is brilliant. And there's loads of expertise in the team here, so I think we can draw on all of that. You know, Mike, you know, Carrie, myself, Sarah, there's lots of people who can contribute into this, and it's really exciting. I think there's positive things that will come out of this which will benefit our community, so I'm just so pleased to see there's a positive reaction.
I think what sorry.
I just wonder if any view was taken on the beacon burning on top of the castle.
Included, I'm sure.
So I was just going to say, I mean, the nice thing about this is that we do so much already.
Yeah.
We all do stuff personally.
Yeah.
All we're doing is we're transferring that into, you know, we've got our new bins here. That's because we have to. But as a council, it does look good. You know, I don't know what's virtue signal. Actually, that's really good. This is a lottery funded project, which again, you know, it doesn't.
Are you working with any other councils? Because I thought, well, you know, here we go. It's not an opportunity. Field days this year, and you know, we've said this, and we've talked about this in the past, and you know, we've got it in writing that we should be adhering to the aims and objectives of the well-being of future generations. Because that gives us a direction to go to. Otherwise, I just feel that we're cramping about in the air.
Sorry, I don't want to say this, but also on that point, like you mentioned, there is a lot of misconception. So, you know, we could be spending money, not just in the environment group, but in all the other groups, thinking, well, we think this is the best for the environment. He could turn around and say, actually, it's not. So it just could open up our eyes. Yeah.
And also the point was made before about, you know, maybe, you know, as I said, everything's up in the air at the moment, but say if we went forward with the Austrians, then yes, okay, we're working with down to it. But with any of these things, sometimes a second opinion can be a useful thing to have as well, because then, you know, you can triangulate it and put more effort
We
in.
have, just so you know, there is a review, the third party review on the.
Oh, no, okay, but yeah.
Yeah.
So it's mainly information sharing, but I'll just sort of say at this point, it's not giving us any particularly significant outlay. And if it does lead to any significant outlay, well, then it does need to come back to our committee and then to full council. Okay? So are we happy to proceed on that basis? So if that's the case, and we haven't got a clerk's report, I'll go on to my chair's report, which it's not too long. Yeah, no, that's why. Oh, yeah. It's not too long this month. So on the evening of the 6th of June at Oystermouth Castle, we were honoured to host the lighting of the beacon to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the D-Day landings. The Friends of Oystermouth Castle organised a great entertainment for the evening, which was compared by Rob Henry and included many local performers and entertainers. A very special thank you is extended to the 1998 West Cross RAF AC Squadron for their professional appearance and stand-in throughout the whole event. It was really wonderful to see the High Sheriff of West Glamorgan, who led the countdown to the beacon lighting, which was executed by Hugh Richards. It was heartening to see a very respectable turnout of Mumbles community councillors for the event, and the event was characterised by general bonhomie, notwithstanding the underlying profundity of the event that was being commemorated. And the whole event proved to be a fitting tribute to the bravery and sacrifice of those involved in the D-Day landings. And I think the community of Mumbles can take great pride in such a commemoration, and we are grateful to all those who joined us there at this event. Of course, it is often our knowledge of the past that helps us to understand the present. And following the continental trauma following the war across mainland Europe, the town twinning movement started very soon after the end of the war in 1945. With the passionate support of those who vowed that Europe should never again be torn apart by this historic blight of the European war. Of course, at the moment, we have visitors to our community from our twin town of Henbont in Brittany, a community who 80 years ago was directly impacted by the aftermath of the events that we celebrated on the 6th. Thankfully, however, we are currently living in a more peaceful times, and this week will be characterised by a number of events that celebrate our civic twinning, and it is a wonderful testament that we are able to celebrate the continued 20 years links between our two communities, and long may it continue. Thank you very much. Okay, so if I move on to what Paul sees the highlight of the.
No, not this part. It's not this part. It counts at the end.
Yeah, I'm getting too excited all the time. So if we move on to the financial report from the RFO, again, you'll find these.
Find it now for you, Paul.
Up it up on the screen.
Just one
Are
question.
you the electrician?
No, that's the wrong one.
Question while we're.
Yeah.
I just noticed that looking through the expenditures, £2,000 on cups for Mumbles Fest. Seems like a lot of money for cups.
They're the reusable plastic ones, festival ones branded, so that we don't have any single-use plastics there.
Yes.
They buy them at the door.
They buy
So
them.
they buy them for £1.
And how many do we do? Does it cover itself last year? Like, did we, you know?
We've got some left over from last year and we've ordered more to be sure, because obviously the single-use plastic. So people will buy these. Diane's going to man that on the day, and they can only get a drink from the bar if they've got one of these cups. And they have to buy one of these cups, and it is written in the small print online.
So just one thing on that. So if we sell all the caps, say, do we make a profit or do we just break even on it?
A slight profit, I think.
It doesn't matter,
Yeah.
just.
Rounded up, sort of.
Yeah.
And did you want to say something?
No, because we still use ours. Are we allowed to bring it, use it?
Yeah.
If you bought one last year, you back it.
Just to buy one on the day and they bought a reusable cup, then provided it's empty coming in, so they will empty it out coming in.
This year, we've also got wine glasses from the plastic as well. We only had pints and halves last year, so we've got wine. And have we got champagne ones? No.
Just wine.
Well, this is the whole ethos of reuse, isn't it?
What's up on the screen is, I think, about 3.5 pages of expenditure. It only comes to 60,000, which is not a lot compared to what we have been spending in previous months. Mostly on, as you picked out already, there's expenditure started on Mumblesfest, and there's also some bigger amounts on the Ostream Centre redevelopment. Also, Jeff, you scroll down a little bit, Phil, please. Keep going, yeah, keep going down to the third page. Next one. That's the one, yeah. So there we are. That shows you the expenditure. We've in the month just short of 61,000, £400 on the credit card, and then 7,200 of income. Mostly Mumblesfest vendors and bar, and then the Ostream Centre 5,700. So another good month for the Ostream sector.
Just on that, I think it's worth pointing out that Ostream's obviously income wise is obviously up quite considerably.
Yeah.
On the balance sheet, it shows less because we're not paying for this place, are we? Because we were paying for this offer.
Yeah, they would have. This was 9,800 income for them, I think, over the year.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not being paid by us anymore.
Yeah.
But obviously, we are renting out the arts and crafts room to Bargains.
Yeah.
Which just about covers that. So there's sort of new business has come in since we stopped paying.
Which is great news that the income's up on this place.
Yeah, that's good. That's good, please. With regards to what was formerly the Warm Hub, West Cross one and the Ostream one, is there a payment made to OCA, for example, for the Warm Hub taking place here and similarly at the West Cross? Is that charged?
I think you get free use of the West Cross Community Centre.
Currently get. However, the West Cross Community Association have asked, and I think there's probably be a formal letter on the way for a contribution now, because energy costs at the centre have gone up and the city has stopped subsidising now. So there is a small impact for that. So there's not money in the budget for Warm Hub. No doubt Sarah and I will meet about to our council budget.
And in terms of the Ostream Centre, any use that Mumbles Community Council makes of the centre is not charged, because we'd be charging ourselves, which didn't make any sense. So what I've asked Elaine to do is to keep a record of all the Mumbles Community Council use. So at any time I'd be able to say that, you know, if it hadn't been for Mumbles using it, this is what could have been generated by rental.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Next page, please, Paul. There you've got the bank balances then at first week of June, just over 364,000, and the budget monitoring to the end of April shows a budget of 863,000 and expenditure of just 15,000. There was much more expenditure than that in April, but because of the way we account for expenditure, anything that's paid out in April or May, which relates to the previous financial year, gets charged back into the previous financial year. So that's why it's not included in that figure of actual expenditure. And that gives a 1.8% of the budget was spent in April. So the recommendation on the payments is that the payments made in May are retrospectively approved, and then the budget monitor reports to the 30th of April approved, and then I'll go on to those final final two items that, after that.
Okay, then, so unless there are any other questions on what Paul has recounted today, are we happy to approve two recommendations? So those in favour?
Thank you.
Okay, that's it.
Okay, the next page, then, Phil, please. Okay, so these are two items that myself and Kerry have authorised under delegated powers. Once we do that, it's got to be reported to the next meeting of council. First one is the sealing of the skate park surface. There was an end of defects meeting at the end of, back in February, where the Maverick representative recommended that the skate park surface should be sealed using a water-based solution. And that's because of the proximity of the skate park to the sea, to prevent any damage to the surface. The cost of that was £1,500 plus VAT. The Mumbles Skate Park representative who was at that meeting said that they could meet that cost from their reserves, and they've already transferred that money to the council. So we've already received £1,500 in June. So at no cost to the council, therefore we agreed to authorise that work, so it'll be done now before the school holidays.
Do you know when that needs to be done again?
They said probably every 2 years.
And did they know when they did it? Is that part of the future plan?
I didn't recall it prior to that meeting being mentioned, but they would have always known where the skate park was being built, so I guess they would have been aware of it.
Yeah, and did they hint that they would do that every 2 years, or will that be up to us?
I think they would do it, but then obviously the cost would have to be possibly picked up by the council in future if the skate park association don't have any funds. But obviously our first call would be to ask them if they could fund it again. So okay, so we've authorised that, so the work goes ahead before the school summer holidays. And the recommendation is that council notes this authorisation as there's no cost to the council.
Okay, so unless there's any queries or anything, we're all happy to authorise that.
Yeah.
Favour? Yeah.
Second item then is already mentioned. Today is the D-Day 80th anniversary. I think that obviously this council was after that event last week. So myself and Kerry authorised the purchasing of flags and also the lighting of the beacon. So the total cost of marking that anniversary should be no more than £400. And I recommend that council agrees the action to recognise the anniversary, and that the cost is met by Viament from the contingency fund.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, that's all okay. So, no.
Yeah, that's it. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, so then if we move on to point 10, which is report from the chair of the Finance and Compliance Committee.
There's no, excuse me, written report. I apologise because my email is down on both my iPad and that. I can tell you what we discussed at that meeting. If that helps.
The report.
There we are. So I mean, where is it? I had it here. Yeah. Pam was elected as vice chair. We've looked at the removal and the salvage of the picnic benches and where we can relocate them to along front or wherever we put them. Alan Thomas evaluate chairs to meet with all the chairs of the committees and evaluate them. The quarterly accounts, which we're doing.
Yeah.
And the other thing was we were going to set up a in fact, all councillors are going to be written to, Kerry said, for joining a working group, a scrutiny group on the One Voice Wales compliance and legal sort of document. That has to go to Kerry first to do things, and then we look at it after, but there was going to be a working group on that. Myself, Phil and Pam attended last week a One Voice Wales training course on compliance more than the financial side of things, which I thought really interesting. That hour and a half quite flew. very interesting. And you know, the powers we have as a council, and once Kerry is qualified as Silca, how much more power and options it opens us to up to us as a council for what we can actually achieve in the community. So it's really interesting. So that's it at the moment. Yeah, that's anything else?
Anybody got any questions for the chair of the Finance and Compliance Committee in relation to that? Brian, I can see your thumb up.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I was a bit slow then clicking on the horrible. Yeah, thanks. Rob, so what about the picnic benches being allocated to the wards? Is that still?
Yeah, I mean, what Kerry said was that only certain people had come back to her with requests for where they wanted these benches. And I know we did some in Newton, myself, Andrew, and Ian, and Will talked about where we could relocate them. So, I mean, you know, it's a little bit up in the air at the moment as to where they're going.
Sorry, so wasn't it decided that it was so expensive to actually transport them? And
I think that the expensive thing for the benches is the remounting them in concrete bases. The concrete bases for them. The picnic benches, no, because they're freestanding. You don't need to have those into concrete. But the benches, to save somebody, you know, jumping on one and go, ugh.
Yeah. So can we? How do we go about asking for ones for our wards?
That I don't know if that ship has sailed, because that was something which happened last year sometime, wasn't it?
Well, what I would say to you, you know, if you're particularly interested, Ian, put your request in writing and forward it to Kerry.
Kerry, yeah.
Okay, I thought I had, but okay, yeah.
And I think you have as well, but I'm not 100% sure. That's why I was surprised you're asking in some ways. But like, I thought you have, but I don't know where we are with proceeding with that. But how can I say, we have identified that there are a number of factors that we have got to look at, because just putting down a concrete base somewhere, you know,
it's about £1,000.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's in some ways the base, I think, is more expensive than what we'd be paying for the bench. Like, you know.
Yeah, sure, I understand. Okay, I'll follow it up and see what can be done, if anything. Thank you.
Yes, I was going to start because we put some in last year, so I just wanted to double check that answer is still relevant. It's not like Kerry's recirculated it. That original
recirculated.
I think I'm over the whole year. I think I've got to sort of clean benches out, and now I'm not sure. I think sort of benches out. So the picnic ones and the other ones, and I cleared lots of chat, and I just lost track of where I am with this. So I will contact you, Rob, and try to figure it out.
Yeah, I think where the confusion is, the picnic benches in South Bank Gardens are freestanding. There wasn't going to be a cost. It was just a case of for them, and I don't have anything to do with that. But if you mean about the actual benches, like from Mumbles Community Council, Swansea City, going along the prom because of the sea defence, we had the cost of about 25 grand. And obviously that was just through the budget, and it wasn't an economic perspective. However, we have been in a meeting with the council since, and I know they are keen to recycle them, and I have chased up on that, because obviously I won't say anything more because I don't want them to listen, but we can see what we can do.
No, that's, I mean, I think there has been a little confusion about, if you like, the picnic benches and the benches.
Yeah.
Because the picnic benches are quite easy to relocate, but the other benches, and also it's, you know, just putting a concrete base down, it's not going to be entered into the feeling. Yeah, that's what I mean.
That's increasing our carbon footprint.
So, if there's no other questions, are we happy to vote from the chair of Community and Social Committee?
Hey, Chair, verbal report here. Community and Social Development meeting on the 15th of May. A presentation was given by Kimberley Littlemore Mumbles Yacht Club on proposals to create a new Mumbles Yacht Club on the seafront opposite the current location. It was hoped the project would be completed in 2 years. Further information is available on the on the MCC website. Election of vice chair was deferred, so all community councillors or committee on the committee could be considered because we just made quorum. So that'll be dealt with possibly at the next meeting. Previous minutes were approved. A discussion took place on the Hennebont Gardens, reference to a community asset transfer. That is pending. It was reported that exercise equipment needs replacing along West Cross seafront at a cost of £1,800 per item plus £200 installing fee to Swansea City Council. Councillor Thomas to look into the current equipment that's available. And that is it.
Okay, any questions for the chair of that committee? Okay, if that's the case, we're happy to move on to the report for the chair of the environmental committee. We've got a written report here. I'll read it out. This was the first meeting of the new committee and mainly focused on reviewing the budget for the 2024-2025 and work outstanding from last year. Phil Keaton was elected vice chair. Buzz and Bloom 2024 has now been launched, and could all councillors please encourage their ward residents to enter. Full information of categories and how to enter is available on through our website. We received a Heritage Lottery Fund grant for the Jubilee Gardens, thanks to Lydia. And the steering group has had their initial meeting. Lydia provided a monthly report which is attached. The litter pick on Sunday, July the 7th at 10 a.m. And the next Mumbles Green Heroes event will be on Thursday, July the 11th. The main presentation will be Gareth Richards from Gower Seal Group, so it should be really interesting event. Please go.
July 11th isn't actually confirmed. That was a suggested date. So we still need to 100% confirm a venue and confirm that Gareth can still do that date because he gets booked up pretty quickly. So
Shall we just keep involved? Any, just going a little bit off the tangent, any sort of updates on Jubilee Gardens or where we are with it? Or the initial meeting with the steering?
Meeting with the steering group. I need to go meet with Ash because things were a little bit on hold until we hired a new grounds person. Because he has a lot of very different ideas to what Martin had. And obviously he's going to be the one, planting all the plants and deciding on the planting scheme. So I need to go and have a look around them with him. In the grant application we did, we suggested that we wanted to do a rain garden. I'm currently looking into that, and it's coming out to be quite a lot of work. And trying to find information on that is really difficult. So I'm trying my best to look into that, but it might be something that we might have to not do. But getting there. The first step needs to be clearing the site. Speaking with that at the moment.
I'll just say Sarah's probably got lots of info on rain gardens, so
it's because of the area. It'd be an amazing place to do it. Because it's right next to a gully pot that is at the bottom of Newton Road and on Mumbles Road, which means that there's a huge amount of rainwater runoff that goes into that, which obviously is like heavy metals, fuel, microplastics and things, which I've found out goes directly into the sea. So a rain garden would do a lot in terms of collecting those things, and it would be a really good thing to do. I've contacted Swansea Council to see if it's something that they would like to get on board with, but they've got back to me and said they don't really have the resources to do it. So, which I'm surprised. So, it would be a good place to do it, but whether we can do it or not.
Where's the connection between the bottom of Newton Road and Jubilee Gardens?
Is it Newton Road? Not, sorry.
No.
What comes up from the hill, isn't it?
Glen Road.
Yeah,
Glen.
Something I mentioned before or requested rather, in a full council meeting was with litter picks. Could they possibly not be on a Sunday, but on a Saturday? Just because, Sunday is a day of rest. I have family commitments on a Sunday. I'd love to get involved, but I'm not going to do it on a Sunday.
I doing them on Sundays because when I started they were Sunday. I have had a few people say to me whether we could do them during the week or on another day. If I was going to do to volunteers a bit of a question and ask what volunteers thought would be the
good day.
But yeah, I'm open to moving it because I don't really want to give up.
So the report from the Chair of Culture, Tourism and Communication Committee.
Well, it's my first meeting as chair. I've got the chair's report through it. All but Rob Marshall was elected as vice chair. We had the budget report from Paul. Thank you, Paul. And we all accepted the recommendations, one of which was to carry £2,000 from the underspent budget forward to 24-25, and then of that we agreed £500 would be given to Councillor Zoo for his Essence of Mumbles, which is a photographic exploration, and we looked at the 26th, 27th of October, and the rest of the money will be made up from his own budget. I think as well, and maybe Rob. Mumbles Fest, we had an update from Claire Anderson with everything, which of course is this weekend, so don't forget to come and enjoy. D-Day celebrations happened at the castle, which is a success, and we had another idea which is needs to be explored further from Councillor Jarvis about the Mumbles Folk and Blues Festival, which needs a bit more work. But yeah, any questions? And also, I really like the chair's reports from everybody because you get to know what's going on in each year.
Yes, exactly. That was all the reasoning behind it, because as I was saying about when we had the presentation of the other thing, I do think one of the things we've had really is almost like the silo thing, where all the different committees, everybody knows what's going on in the committees they're part of. I think it's good that we have this sort of communication about what's going on, and it gives a more sort of, we can adopt a more strategic approach. Hopefully, he's a lovely picture.
No, show your finger up. Can I just ask a question? Sorry. We spoke about before maybe doing a bit more on around the raft race, and you were going to get in touch with the people who run the raft, not for this year, but maybe for next year. I don't know if that's on the agenda yet.
It is on the agenda for the next meeting, and for next year rather than this year. But we had a little chat, like, just as something we could still do as MCC, we wanted to walk our own back behind closed doors, get involved and do a raft. Yeah, it's fun. And if people are up for that, we can totally, do that.
I've never done it. I can't imagine I'm going to be very good, right? I'd love to do it. She's a professional role, she said the other day.
Actually, that'll be discussed. Yeah.
Okay, I'll pass the contact on to you then.
No, that's a good idea, because it's almost like central to culture of Mumbles, isn't it?
Yeah, I think often we've got one. If you ask someone in Brecon or whatever, what event do you know happens in Mumbles? It'd be the raft race. And are we trying to reinvent the wheel with all these new things? We not just have what is iconic and make it really good,
Yeah, and hopefully Mumbles Fest is adding to that. The raft race definitely can be on there.
But it could be on the same day, and you could have an day of. So they carry the raft up to the. You're not thinking big enough.
Benefits from having two separate events, and then the economy benefits from having that money spent on 2 different days, not just one.
So with Mumbles Fest, I'm come in and want to support it however I can, but I'm not really kind of up to date with it. So all the recycling's in place, all of that is kind of happening and everything's okay?
Yeah, Claire's got extra people to do the extra picks again, and we're doing the single-use plastic. We're still, I think Claire might still be, she did want some volunteers to help out on the day. I think in terms of a timetable, I don't know where she's at with that. We had a brief conversation earlier, and I think she was filling up the slots with volunteers, but if you are around.
I would definitely be able to help.
Oh, thank you.
We're not on a stand, are we?
No, I'm away, and so I won't be able to go. Yeah.
That's fine, as long as I sort of, I've missed something or whatnot. And then the other thing I was going to ask, so to what extent do we fund Paul Whittaker and his events?
Well, we fund Paul Whittaker, we give him a sort of standard sort of payment, but we don't fund his events.
He splits that and divvies it up.
Yeah.
Oh, because I just wondered the fact that his events were last week, the week before ours, I don't think it's ideal for us.
No, it's not ideal. I totally agree.
I think we need to write that into an agreement that there's like a sort of a buffer of a couple of or a few weeks between what we're doing and him, because
just to let you know, when we planned our date, we didn't know that his date was then. That was sort of a lack of communication really on both, because he then obviously had planned this date and we didn't know he planned this date. So I actually shared a message with Paul the other day with regards to proposing a new date, which will come up in the next meeting. So I really, really want to get Paul's first date for next year in the next meeting.
Point taken on that, and to be honest, I don't think Paul was very happy about it either, to be honest, right? But it was just, I think, a breakdown in communication.
It's annoying.
You know, the thing is, when things like this happen, I think what's the most important, we learn from it. You know, okay, it wasn't great this year, but let's make sure it doesn't happen again.
And I'm sure they better be brilliant. It's just
But also this whole sort of thing about coordination, you know, we have got this sort of standing arrangement with Paul, but also, as we know, Paul did a lot of events. We do a lot of events with Paul. Maybe better coordination. Yeah, exactly.
So last year we did the Christmas thing. You DJ'd or whatever. I thought that was brilliant, and a few of us were chatting, and we all, we could make this bigger next year. And it felt like I felt there was real potential for that. And I didn't know whether it's not for discussion, obviously, but I just wanted to flag for the future. Is that something we're thinking?
Yeah, there is potential, and I don't know how much money is there for this year's. That's the only thing, but we do want to make it bigger and better, and if we can, we definitely will for this year.
Depends how much money Paul is going to put into it out of what we allocate him as well, isn't it, into that event, because he picks and chooses which events he's going to use the grant for. So it's going to depend how much money he puts in from that, and how much money is left over that we can. No, we don't give a grant for that now, do we? Because he's, as I understand it, his whatever he gets for putting on all his events means he doesn't apply for grants in retrospect anymore.
Yeah, like
he gets a grant of 8,500. Which is then split over. He says, well, he's going to split it over the 5 different events.
Yeah. Yeah. As I said, better communication going forward. Okay. Everybody happy? So if we can move on to what Paul's been waiting for all evening? 2014.
No, not quite.
Oh, 14 is draft.
He's excited about it.
Yeah, draft annual report. There's
I
don't think there's any. This will be Kerry, and there's nothing on the agenda, so I don't think on Teams. So I think it's something to be deferred to.
We have to because we haven't got it. So if we go on to your annual account.
Thanks, Chair. Phil, you put up annual 15 annual return.
Item 15 or item 16?
I think the annual return, there's 3. Annual return is the first one.
16 annual return and 15 income statement and 15 balance sheet.
There should be.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, we found
item 15 annual.
While you're just checking that, we go back to the culture. We just need to formally agree the recommendation that was made for full council approval. £500 is taken for the budget.
Sorry, we'll have to do that separately as a report on the whole council. So I'll bring that forward to the next meeting then of the carry forwards.
Okay.
So rather than do one in isolation.
Bear with me a minute. Ah, yeah.
Okay, annual accounts 23-24, that should be. Annual accounts 23-24. Each community and town council across Wales has to fill in one of these returns. It's a standard return across all councils. And it must be approved by the council, this council, by the 30th of June. And I think it's good that this is the first time we've had it at a scheduled monthly meeting rather than having to hold a 10-minute meeting at the end of the month. So it's good that we've got that, and a lot of it was down to our auditor. He managed to bring his work forward to do this so that we could report tonight. That annual return, it's got 2 years. It's got last year's accounts and it's got this year's accounts in the two columns. What it starts off with is the balance that we hold as a council. That's the top line, row 1. Then it adds in the precept. Then it adds in any other receipts we've had during the year. Then it takes off the staff costs. Then it takes off any loan repayments we've made, which was obviously on Underhill. And then it takes off all the other expenditure. And then that gives us the balance that's carried forward. So the balance carried forward is 348,474. But you remember that number, because I'll come back to that in the next two bits. So our balance has gone down. It's gone down around 172,000 over the course of the year. That's to be expected because we gave the Underhill all-weather pitch, so we paid that out in the year. So I would have expected the balances to come down. The next part then is the statement of balances. It shows the debtors, so how much money is owed to us. It shows the cash that we hold, and then it shows any creditors, so that's people that we owe at the end of the year. And then that comes back again to that figure, 348,474. And then the bottom two figures then are two memo items, one showing our fixed assets, just over 1.6 million, and that was reported to the council last month, and also then the capital value of any loans we have.
Well, yeah, some quick fire questions. The total borrowing, that's just Underhill, isn't it?
Yes, just Underhill.
Okay, so and that's fixed rate, so that 97 will stay the same.
Yeah,
for the next 11 years,
15 years. Yeah. Another 13 years.
Yeah, another 13 years. Yeah. The creditors, that's just basically an account to be exercised for whoever's still owed invoice and outstanding, is it?
This is for the payments in April and May, which I mentioned earlier.
Okay, and I did have one other question. I just lost it. 1 second, it'll come to me. That is cash. Oh yeah, the fixed assets. Is that this building? Because I can't think of anything else that we have.
It's
an asset.
It's this building. It's skate park. It's any other things which we bought of a significant value. Plus, it's also got little amounts on there. In the past, we put things like tables and telephones, or, which I think was decided last month. We put a new policy in place, so the minimum we would put in would be 500. So it also includes all the laptops, things like that.
Who determines the value of the skate park in this place?
It's purchase price. Is what goes in the accounts. Depreciation isn't relevant for for community councils.
Right.
So this is in that insurance value, around 1.1 million, and the skate park is in for the construction cost, just over 400,000.
Okay, thanks.
Not enough, really.
That's what it was 2 or 3 years ago, so it has stayed the same. But insurance will have gone up over the year.
Okay, then are there any questions, any other questions, queries in relation to this?
No, well done, Paul.
Yes.
Put up income and expenditure account. Item 15.
Just my little screen there. Obviously close something I shouldn't have.
Okay, thanks. So this is the council's income and expenditure account for 23-24. Again, it shows the previous year and it shows the current year then on the right hand side. So we had income over the course of the year of £936,000 and we spent 1.1 million. And then the final part of that shows those balances again, starting off with the 519,000 from the previous year, takes off expenditure, adds on the income, and then it comes back to that figure again of 348,474. That showed up in the annual return. The item 15 balance sheet, please, Phil. I'm sorry, has somebody's got any questions?
Questions, no? Okay. One thought.
Okay, then the final one then is the balance sheet for the year.
I don't know what it is.
Okay, it's again the balance sheet. Basically, it just shows that figure in a different format. It's the third different format we've got. So this shows all our debtors, prepayments, VAT recoverable, cash in hand, given assets, and then creditors. Again, comes back to that figure of 348,474, and that is our general fund balance at the end of the year. What I'll be bringing is a report in the next month, probably, of earmark reserves. So that 348,000 will be split down between earmark reserves and general reserves, and that will include the figures that Angela mentioned earlier for culture.
Okay. Okay, well,
Yeah, just one question. Obviously, we've got always got, it seems, roughly £500,000 on deposit in the bank. You know, it's not at the moment, but on average over the last few years,
Yeah.
up to 2 million at some points. Now, some banks, you know, if we moved banks, I'm sure we get like a 4%, you know, at least interest, which is, you know, quite a large amount of money. I think it's worth probably finance committee looking at. And you know, because obviously your current bank now says, yeah, sure, you can have a current account.
1.2%, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So look into that.
There was a presentation, I can't remember if it was early this year or before Christmas, with the Austrian working group, where CCLA, which I think is a specialist community council investment body, who it's risky. It is risky.
Yeah, it's risky.
It would be something that we would have to look at and obviously bring to council to decide what would be an appropriate.
Just a major high street bank on deposit, isn't it? That's what we want. Just, you know.
If they can beat what Lloyd's are currently offering us. It's something we
do you know what we've got now?
1.2%.
Oh, it's better than what I thought.
Society maybe down the road.
If they do accounts for local.
We have to be very careful with this.
Yes.
That came up at that meeting.
yeah.
It's a major bank.
Alice?
Yeah, so we're reviewing our bank actually in work because we're the government banking service, but it's NatWest, and we're looking at the ethical element of that. And I went to a Simon Reeve event at the arena, and he said the most important thing that anyone can do in this audience, it's obviously a well-heeled audience, is your financial portfolio.
Yeah.
And so we are looking at that in work. Just you know, NatWest isn't great, Barclays or actually bank, but they're the worst.
Yeah, the worst.
Yes, well, maybe that's also a factor as well as interest rate, which we're trying to achieve some of that as well, isn't it? Is you know, if we go back to the co-op, for instance, to look just to make sure we include those
Ethical banking.
because they're funding, you know, human rights abuses and obviously fossil fuel investment. So just to make sure that's in the mix. Yeah. Thing is, like, if I change Barclays, nobody wants me because I got
So the recommendation then, Chair, is for council to approve the annual accounts for the year ending 31st March 2024.
Yeah, all in favour of that? Thank you. Done on that, Paul. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Point 16.
Yeah, the final item then is annual audit. These are the item 16 ones then.
Yeah.
16, annual return.
Annual return, please, yeah. Okay, this is it's part of the annual return I looked at earlier, but this is the auditor's report. So what the auditor's done, he's done a lot of work over the last 3 weeks probably. This is this is the standard format that he's got to fill in. It shows what he's found based on his audit, and everything is ticked as good for us. And then he's signed it off, and that's something that we have to do before the council authorises it. So that's the annual report. Not a great deal of information on that. I think the best part to go through is the interim audit report. Phil is against
this one.
Yep, yeah, it's quite a detailed report. He's done a lot of work, and it's all listed down on his reports, quite extensive. I'm sure you've all looked through it already, but if not, you can look through it at your leisure again. I'll go through it in detail. The most important part, I think, is his conclusions that there's no significant issues. He's made some recommendations in section 4. Nothing too startling, nothing that myself and Clary probably weren't aware of in some cases. So I'm happy to accept those recommendations. I think the best way to deal with it going forward as a council is if I take a report to finance maybe in September, and then again in March next year, to show what progress we've made on looking at. Okay, and then the final document then is the auditor wrote a letter to Martin as chair, and his main findings. He's not highlighted any significant issues. He's identified certain items like writing and implementing an IT security and backup policy, and reviewing some of the suppliers we use for goods and services, because they've been we've been using them for a number of years. So I think it is a valid recommendation that we look at those.
Well, that come under the gentleman sitting here. He look at this within his.
He didn't say. He said he was looking at the budget initially. I'm not sure it will be.
But he did talk about procurement.
It goes on to the second stage, yeah, procurement, I guess.
Yeah, procurement, yeah. The thing is, I suppose there's maybe a bit of a balance that we've got to reach there, is with keeping our auditors happy and then keeping our footprint happy.
Got to be the auditor.
We manage both.
Yeah.
We've got a great system, Maribor.
Yeah. Well, it's it is something.
Okay, and I think the final. Sorry, Jen.
No, you're going to go on the
The
letter.
letter, yeah, the final part of the letter, which is obviously the main bit I'm interested in and happy about, is he says assurance can be expressed in the governance arrangements and the financial statements of Mumbles Community Council for the financial year 23-24. So the recommendation then is for council to approve the internal auditor's report.
Okay, all happy with that? Just wanted to bring, Paul, if you could just give us a little bit of an update about, especially I think for newer councillors as well, is how the procedure we've got now with this and going on to the Audit Wales.
Okay, yeah. Audit Wales.
All I just want to say, this is not the end of it.
Yeah.
This is just our internal audit. Paul will then fill you in on what's going to go on with what Audit Wales, which is like our external audit.
Yeah. Okay. Every year after we've had the accounts approved, the accounts get submitted to Audit Wales for them to do their audit. what they do is they've got a 3-year cycle. So every 2 years they do a light touch audit. So they don't pay any visits. They just get the information off us. And then if they've got any queries, they come back with queries. And then the 3rd year they do an in-depth audit. And that's what they're doing for us. That's what they will be doing for us this year. So they want to see all the invoices. They want to see all the bank statements and lots of other information as well. But the interesting thing is that the last set of accounts that Audit Wales signed off for members was 2018-19. So they've had all the information.
Yeah.
So they've had it all on within the due dates, but they haven't signed them off for the last 4 years. They've asked lots of questions on things like skate park, on things like Underhill, which I've spent a ridiculous amount of time gathering that information, because it goes back to skate park 2018.
Yeah.
So they've had all that information. I know they spent quite a lot of time this year looking over that information, looking over previous years. So I would hope soon we would get some of those years signed off.
They haven't given any reason why it's not suspicious of something.
Well, no, it's nothing to do with the financial side of it. It's just that they're more interested in things like the skate park, on how it was procured, what arrangements we put in place with MCA for the grant agreement. So they're just trying to satisfy themselves that the council has protected itself.
I went to a presentation by the chief auditor from Audit Wales, and I honestly think what he said as a conservation, a lot of it is because they're just overwhelmed. And we just went of all these community councils, and they particularly concern themselves when things are going awry, as it were, or particularly with the very sort of criminal activity.
Not that it is, right?
No. But you know, but you know, if that happens elsewhere, obviously that's where the attention goes. You know, obviously they're gonna, you know, keep an eye on us with our procurement and sort of stuff like that. But if you're asking me, you know, what was the reason? I think a lot of it is they're just overwhelmed with the amount of work that's gone. And also, what they seem to be saying, they spend a lot of time chasing. You know, you can imagine a lot of these councils are just very small councils with, you know, not very big budgets, and maybe people who aren't very experienced, so they spend a lot of time chasing people up. So I think that's what a lot of it is about. It's just sheer volume of work.
Yeah.
But you know, saying that, I think it is obviously important that we keep, you know, our books in order and stuff like that. But you know, we're asking the right questions. But you know, this is why we need this internal audit approach to. So we're happy that we've got somebody looking at our, but then we need to go to external audit. But I just wanted Paul to make that clear, because I think for newer councillors like yourself, the whole process is all new to you. Like, and it is quite convoluted, it's got to be said. Like,
It's quite standard, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Of internal and external audit.
It's very standard, but you know, for people say, well, you know, not familiar with community councils or, you know, no democracy and sort of stuff there, it can seem very confusing. Yeah. Why are we having one audit, then we're having another audit, a completely different.
Knowing what Facebook groups are like in this village, then you know you can just quite easily imagine, oh, there's an additional audit.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely normal to have external and internal audit. That's how it's done.
That's why I wanted to have that conversation, is that, you know, and you know, we're fulfilling all our financial criteria. Everything that is being asked for us, we are fulfilling. And I just want to make that 100% clear. You know?
I think part of the delay with Audit Wales as well is that in about prior to 2020, there was 3 bodies doing the audits. Audit Wales did them. Then they outsourced to two private accountants as well. So in about 2020, they decided to take all that work back in-house.
In-house, that's what I was saying.
And I think they were surprised at how much work came out, because the other bodies the other 2 companies hadn't completed it. Either hadn't completed the work they should have done, or they hadn't received the accounts from the community councils. So that, I think they were a bit, as Martin said, a bit overwhelmed by the amount of work that they had Because this new process of doing a 3-year cycle, they had to delay a year to try and catch up. I think obviously they had COVID as well. So I think that's part of the reasons, but 4 or 5 years behind is not reasonable, I would suggest.
But you know, all I'm saying, we're doing everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's the point I'm making more than anything. We're doing everything that we've been asked to do, and you know. Right. Okay, so are we all okay on Paul's reports?
Yeah.
No one in favor? Yeah.
Well, you went to class.
I felt like needed to clap.
Okay, so if that's the case,
You think we could start?
it's the end of the meeting. I thank you all for your time. We'll conclude the meeting at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good time there, Mark.
Awesome. Yeah.